Hello and welcome back to the Halarissus One podcast, more than a podcast, video broadcast. You'll hear race motos behind me. Hopefully they're not too disruptive. Ideally, I'd be in the public square in Out and Artist so you get the real atmosphere. Unfortunately, we're blasting Rihanna, and then I like to move it, and I figured that would not be ideal for those listening to the audio here.
The problem is that you don't like to move it, Dane. If
I
you
guess
did,
that's it.
It would have been
I feel
perfect.
like I am a lover of moving it. There's the Belgian cycling car behind me. Cosmo Catalano, let's get into it. We've just seen Tadej Pogačar win the Tour of Flanders.
We've seen a Tour of Flanders.
What's the headline?
The headline is it's not for lack of trying. There was a lot of things that got thrown at UAE by intentionally and otherwise, I think, by a lot of the other racers, and it just did not make the difference in the end. Should we jump right to the moment when the race was won?
The meat of what is it? What's the moment that most illustrates this from the race?
Here we go. I have here a side-by-side image. On the left is 2023. On the right is 2023. On the right is 2025. This year's race. You can see Tadej Pogačar is leading from the very first cobble into the Haute Quaremont. They are a little ways in. In the 2023 footage, almost immediately, Van der Poel kind of eases off. You see the gap opening right away. In this year's race, he tried to stick with him. And we'll pause it here. There's a tree, big tree on a halfway up the climb. It's the same tree. It's slightly different angles. Right about here, you can see Van der Poel be on Pogačar's wheel. In the 2023 race, he is well off already. And then all of a sudden, big gap opens very, very quickly. You can see Van der Poel actually takes a look back, sees who's coming, and it's Wout van Aert. There's this building here, same building in both shots, and it's basically equalized the gap, and it just keeps growing and keeps growing and keeps growing until eventually Van Aert has to come by and start leading the chase, and Pogačar is pretty much long gone from there. So pause for one more still image here. You can see that even though you're much more zoomed out in the 2025 footage, 2023, you can see Van der Poel kind of right in the bottom of the screen, definitely closer. So tried to stick with him, couldn't do it.
It did feel like, there's a couple of things to talk about. I mean, it felt like the other teams had numbers. It felt like there was some jeopardy going into the last 30K. This was not a 50K attack. This was something that really, we didn't know what was going to happen going into the finale. So that was entertaining. It still kind of played out the way that many expected, though, in the end.
Yeah, for sure. I think if anything, you had Wout van Aert kind of overperforming. A lot of people kind of questioned his abilities after Dwars, and he was the engine of the race kind of for the last 30K.
I feel like they have to be happy, right? I mean, it seemed like the whole team was pretty solid on the day.
There were a lot of really solid teams. I mean, if we go back to kind of really where the race action, I'm going to start around 130. There was
Let's take
crash
us,
at 130 kilometers to go with Alpecin, 4 Alpecin riders caught up in it, including Van der Poel. And just, you think about what we saw at Strade Bianche with Tadej Pogačar, the total carnage of him getting out of that field, people running around, no one knows what to do. This was like completely calm. Like Van der Poel got up slowly, got to his feet. He's like his teammates are trying to pick the bikes apart. No one is running. No one's in a hurry. Car pulls up. A guy slowly gets off the roof, rolls the bike out to Van der Poel. They have a quick chat. Another guy remounts. One guy is kind of dropped out of the field. Three of them kind of line up and ride off like they're leaving the cafe on a Sunday ride that is not the Tour of Flanders. It was really clearly in control. And I think because you had these numbers from these non-UAE teams, you saw people getting up the road early. Tish Benoit, probably kind of like one of the contenders maybe for man of the match. Trying to present.
I think we're right up here on 107K to go. Yeah.
There we go. Yes, right here. You can see Tish Benoit and Stefan Kohn got into a breakaway, not the breakaway of the day, but a second group coming out of the peloton at 107K to go, which is a very long time. Yes. You could see a couple K later, you had Ineos and Alpecin get Quinten Hermans and Filippo Ganna into a similar move. And you ended up with 40 kilometers basically of UAE having to chase, and chasing with the group, fair, like not completely lined out, but definitely people working hard, races on, kind of chasing. And the gap was going the wrong way. The gap went from 48 seconds out to a minute 20 at one point, before finally Visma came in and really bailed out UAE, because they had Affini and I'm blanking on his name now.
Somebody in yellow. They had somebody in
yellow. Yeah. Van Barla.
Yes.
And yeah,
yes.
Even as we got to the Quermont, where clearly UAE had planned to break the field up a little bit, see who at least the contenders were. Pogačar's on the grass here. His teammate, who I think is supposed to be leading him out, is 6 bike lengths up the road. The rest of the group is kind of wondering where things, like what's going on. Van der Poel is even further out of position, actually, in this image. But it just goes to show like how UAE was poised to fumble this, and it didn't. They still managed to get, Pogačar made his attack up the Quermont, the first passage, second passage really, but the first one that's like in the finish of the race, and he brought the group down to 5 riders, and it's the 5 riders who really contested the rest of the event.
Yeah, it seemed like tactically. Even at this point of the race, like before we got to the finale, I felt like Ineos had played it really well. We had Filippo Ganna up the road, looking like this was a really smart tactical play. In hindsight, we know now that didn't work out, and Ganna actually towards the end kind of got shelled at the back pretty hard. But it seemed like maybe this is the way to take it to UAE. Don't wait for Tadej to make his inevitable attack. Actually, try to take it to him. And we saw UAE under pressure. We saw Tadej Pogačar isolated. We saw Niels Paulet, Antonio Morgado working really hard. Narvaez crashed, and the numbers were not in Tadej Pogačar's favor. It seemed like the other teams did. I think they played it maybe the best they could have. The result, obviously, not what they wanted. And I think it's particularly little Trek, they had the numbers and the talent to do something with it. Alpecin didn't maybe have the numbers, but you would have thought maybe Van der Poel would have done a little bit more. I don't know. What do you think about Lidl Trek and also Alpecin?
We've got this screenshot up of 5 riders: Pogačar, Mats Pedersen, Wout van Aert, Mathieu van der Poel, and Matteo Jorgensen. And Pogačar seemed very frustrated that none of them really wanted to work with him. And this is a screenshot of 53K to go, and it looks like the winning selection, right? You're never going to see the rest of the field again. And then 2 kilometers later, you have that group catching one of the breakaway groups, with the peloton catching them on the Paterberg. Like this, it is just wild how many times this happened, where you had what looked like a potential race-winning selection, usually Van der Poel and Pogačar, and they just weren't ever able to coordinate and try to stick it, at least not for a very long time. At one point, I think Pogačar was just throwing out random attacks. There was 39K to go. He's attacking up the Steenbeck-Dries or something. It's like half a K long. And immediately at the top, I'm showing a screenshot here. There are flags blowing straight into the road. So he comes up this road. Maybe he breaks the group up a little bit, and then he turns into a headwind. So even if he does get away clear, he's doing way more work against a group that has more people to help out. It just did not seem very coordinated.
To me, the coordination that we saw, the most coordination that we saw was that most of Tadej Pogačar's rivals, up until the moment he actually dropped them all on the Quermont, most of his rivals seemed to be locked in on the strategy of let Pogačar do everything. And I think that's actually the right play. Obviously, again, it didn't work out. We saw, in the end, Tadej Pogačar did Tadej Pogačar things, but they all seemed pretty committed to letting Pogačar do the chasing, with the exception of maybe Wout van Aert doing a bit more chasing than he should have at points. But I thought they played it pretty well. And talking to the various DSs after the race, it seemed like they all kind of had this same idea, which is probably the right idea, which is Tadej Pogačar will chase. He'll do that. He'll put the work in. So we should let him do that.
I mostly agree with that. I think there is one moment where they almost broke his spirit. This is 41K to go. This is after the Koppenberg, which, again, he was able to get separation but not stay clear. And this is Mats Pedersen making his first real solo effort of the race, kind of through this feed zone regrouping area. And you can see Pogačar looking over at, and even jawing at Jorgensen a little bit, like, hey, buddy, like, you guys have 2 riders here. Can somebody else help me out? Because Pedersen, as we know, is a threat for a long range attack.
Right.
And he he didn't completely commit to this. He was looking back, kind of seeing how the group was taking it. But to me, it was there was a very large awareness within the racers that, yeah, Pogačar will chase, but if he doesn't, no one else is going to want to tow him, and there's opportunity to get clear there.
So then, in the end, Pogačar did get away
on
the Clermont.
Convincingly.
There were a couple of interesting things about the finale. For one, Wout van Aert tried, and in an age of everyone watching Pogačar get away and seemingly not even trying to do anything about it, I was happy to see Wout van Aert try, especially after last weekend or last midweek, when I wouldn't have blamed Wout van Aert for just like retiring immediately. Like the morale blow would have been crushing, and the fact that he bounced back and still had a good showing today, looked good today, I think says a lot about him. But not enough. He wasn't able to get away.
Well,
and then, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think Van Aert tried because he had to. I think he did not. I think his 85% effort, his 90% effort, was top tier. He would have been easily keeping pace with Pogačar and Van der Poel, and it was just that last 10%. He didn't really have the snap. We actually saw this the last time into the Clermont. He broke away, tried to break away, and banked some time because he knew he wouldn't be able to respond to the initial accelerations. And I think that's part of why he did so much work. Was like, hey, this is the hand of cards I have in today's race. How do I play this the best of my advantage? I have a pair of threes. What can I do here?
We then saw when Pogačar got away over the Clermont, his initial gap was not that big. I think it was about 10 seconds for a minute or two. It was the kind of gap that with two riders on the same team, very real chance it gets caught. With anyone else, at least. Maybe not with Tadej Pogačar. But in most other race circumstances, you think 10 seconds, you still have 15K to go. That's not enough to be a guaranteed win. It was tricky, hard to say from just watching whether the chase was coordinated enough to avoid our criticism. I can't say for sure. I'm kind of watching thinking Trek could have done a little bit more. They had two guys. I think they let Van Aert do a bit more of the work when they could have probably shared the work a bit more. And particularly because I think that Mats Pedersen doesn't really care about another podium without a win and a monument. He's had some of those, right?
I feel like he cares a little bit. I mean, if you're going to finish fifth or you're going to finish second, like this is Tadej Pogačar we're chasing down here, right? This is not, it's really tough to say there were five of these chasers as one, or four of these chasers as one of him. Why couldn't they get it to five? For me, like you're chasing down Tadej Pogačar, right? This is almost universally a losing proposition.
It usually is. Yeah.
Lidl Trek did a great job kind of moderating their efforts, keeping Pedersen relatively fresh. There's one point, I think 28K to go. He actually did a pack slide between groups. Like he saw Van Aert and Stuyven were coming up, kind of looks over his shoulder and is like, yeah, why would I ride with these guys? We've regrouped 78 different times now. We're going to regroup again. Why would I bury myself to stick with them when I can slide back, get in a group with a teammate? And we saw in the final sprint, he was unchallenged. He destroyed everybody in that sprint for second. He did it from 250 meters out. Like, I think pretty clearly Lidl was like, hey, if everyone else, like, yeah, we have numbers here, but why would we endanger our ability to destroy everybody in the sprint? Because at this point, Van der Poel looks pretty cooked. Like at the first couple of turns after the final passages of Paterberg, he was just barely pedaling through, which may have also made me kind of.
One of our commenters points this out. He did go down. I didn't get a chance to really see exactly how hard he went down. It seemed like he didn't.
He landed on other people. Like if you're going to go down in a bike race, this is how you want to do it. There are a bunch of people already on the deck. He kind of fell off and landed on him. That doesn't mean it didn't hurt. It doesn't mean he didn't take like somebody's pedal in the middle of his thigh. But every single, he didn't need medical attention. He didn't. It was very, like I said, it was calm. It was like, hey, you fall down. He fell down on the grass after he landed on other people. So it was, he never looked in danger. Could have been poker. He could have been really beat up, but at the same time, he had no trouble staying with Pogačar the entire rest of the race, including when he made the move on the Clermont. Like he was able to stick there for a good 20 seconds longer than he did in 2023, but then he blew up. So I think he was actually feeling okay and just really was like, I'm going for it this year. And, he flew too close to the sun on that one.
I think the other thing that is notable about Van der Poel in this race is how he wasn't head and shoulders above the non-Pogačar riders, the way that he was a week ago. At E3, there was no contest.
That's a good point.
Van der Poel was so far ahead of the field that it seemed like, well, when Pogačar shows up, there's going to be a great head-to-head between the two. And even if they are head and shoulders above the rest of the world, at least we'll have this head-to-head. In reality, it was more like Pogačar, in the end, head and shoulders above the competition. Or at least head. Maybe not head and shoulders. Head above the competition. It was still a pretty good race. But Van der Poel not necessarily like he was just one of the top five. He didn't seem like he was any better than Peterson necessarily. Peterson obviously finished higher than him. I think Van der Poel on the climbs a little better than Peterson, but you need to be a lot better than Peterson.
I would agree that the difference, the delta between Van der Poel and the rest of the group was pronounced, but I don't think it was at the size we saw at E3. Every single climb except for the Claremont, Van der Poel was able to go with Pogačar, and that to me shows that he's up there. He's not blowing everybody else away, but at the same time at E3, Pedersen's in a similar situation. Like, I'm solo, a minute ahead of Ghana. Do I really want to try and kill myself and potentially get caught by the best time trialer in the world, debatably the best time trialer in the world, trying to catch Van der Poel? And the answer is pretty clearly no in that situation, right? So I don't know if we got a true measure of Pedersen, of that Van der Poel Pedersen delta.
I did feel like Van der Poel didn't really do that much after the Claremont to try to bring Pogačar back.
The last
seemed to me like he did.
I think he blew up. I think he was really. I think I put a note on Threads like maybe he's cramping just watching the way he's not. Like, he went from being kind of an engine here to being, nope, sorry. So
we saw this group, the riders chasing Pogačar at the end of the race. We just kind of watched them. It wasn't an elastic snapping thing where there was 10 seconds for a little while, and then even after the Paterberg, it still wasn't that. It wasn't an insurmountable gap even after the Paterberg.
No, it was. Yeah, we're talking like 15 seconds after the Claremont and 25 after the Paterberg.
Talking to some of the teams at the finish, Trek in particular, the Trek DS I talked to said that he was fully confident that they would catch Pogačar, which is a little wild.
Yeah,
who's ever confident they're going to catch Pogačar? But it speaks to the fact that they did have the numbers, they had the strength. Jasper Stuyven was the Jasper Stuyven that I think I expected him to be after he won San Remo. Because after that, you kind of, and he had some other Classics results in and around that time where you thought he's going to be a Classics contender for years to come. He hasn't quite reached that level in a little while. It's been a little while since we've seen that strength, but he was super strong today. And I think that speaks to Little Trek's growing confidence in the fact that maybe we can actually catch Pogačar when it is. Didn't happen today, but they had the numbers to do it. Certainly today we saw Pogačar in a situation where had anything even, mundane gone wrong, it's a whole different race because he didn't have that team support. Obviously that didn't happen. So this is a big what if. But if he flats or has takes a bad line somewhere, whatever it is, if we saw it at Strade Bianche, for instance, he still managed to come back and win that race handily. But if that had happened here, that's probably not going to be the case. So it was much closer. And I think the fact that he won by a minute, I think the race was significantly closer to that. It was a significantly better race.
Yeah. I mean, you could see the gap he was losing. They were losing a second or two on that final stretch every half K. And then all of a sudden it was okay, he's gone. And they sat. I mean, they came in slow, which is probably another one of the reasons why Pedersen was able to sprint as aggressively as he did, make such a difference so quickly.
Did anyone stand out to you as being worthy of your heralding?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the big heralding. You mean someone who is unheralded, who should be heralded?
Yeah. Who should be heralded.
I like I said, so the finale of this race lasted, as we've been seeing recently, like 70K, right? It was 56K, let's say, very
Yeah, yeah,
exposed for a very long period of time. There were lots of people who chased back on. Nielsen Powis was one of the first. He was like in a chase group that wasn't working that well and made his way back up to the leaders just, you know, 2 minutes before the entire rest of the peloton caught back on. Stefan Kung, I think it's been really cool to watch him this year kind of change his approach to the classic, because he knows he hasn't been able to get success kind of racing in the traditional way of a race favorite. So he was up the road very
yeah.
early today, trying to break things up.
Totally agree. That's the right play, even if it doesn't work. I did feel like I expected more from a rider who kind of did the similar thing. I expected more from Ghana when he was up the front. It seemed very dangerous to me, and it was a very gutsy thing for everyone else to just say, "Yeah, go ahead, go for it." And that he ended up not really factoring. I think tactically Ineos played it really well, and I want to herald the Ineos tactics today, because, to be quite frank, I think they've been pretty bad tactically for several years. Like, it seemed like they didn't know in the aftermath of, like, once the SkyTrain dominance kind of came to an end, there were several years there where it seemed like that's all they knew how to do. Even when they were not even in contention for a yellow jersey, it was like, we're going to ride hard at the front because that's what we do. This race, they felt to me like they had a great plan, and so did Kung and Kung's teammates. But, like, in this case, Ghana specifically didn't actually deliver on what I was expecting he would. Well, with 80K to go, I'm like, he's got a chance.
So I think they may have been keeping Sheffield back to be their kind of guy in the finale, and he had a crash almost immediately. Like, he had some sort of mechanical. They saw him at the side of the road almost immediately after Ghana went. You're sort of like, or maybe a little bit less than almost immediately, but in that same time window, and you could kind of, it made more sense before. It was sort of like Ghana, and then, well, they have Ghana up the road. I don't know what he's going to do, but
yeah. I do think coming out of this race, Visma, after Dwars, this was a great team effort from them. They to me, they had the numbers, and I'm a lot more confident in Wout. And the big thing that I think today leaves us with, let me see if I can grab this comment, because it's the exact kind of thing that I'm thinking. It's also Raphael. Raphael, you're getting a lot of screen time. He's sending a message to the Belgian press, and he is. I mean, the guy is getting swamped every race with questions, and I think today we saw him. Well, first of all, he did a lot of work. He looked good. He also spent a lot of time on camera, and I think that should help quell some of the questions. Maybe he didn't. The result wasn't there, but he was, in the top 5.
He was, yeah, and against on a day, on a period of his career where he seems to be not very good at sprinting, that was a sprint, right? And, like, what was he going to do? Like, and he tried to get away a couple of times. He was up the road. He took it on, and the skills that he showed today are going to play a lot better next weekend than they played today. Like, he was, other than his move up the Hotond, like, he was not looking stellar on any of the climbs. And even then, it wasn't like, he was dropping guys that had been dropped already by Pogačar and Van der Poel. But on a flatter race, on a race that's really a lot more about position and about sustaining power, like, you can go really hard for a couple of seconds on the cobbles, but it's the way you make a split pedaling on the cobbles is pedaling really, really hard for a long enough period of time that somebody can't hold your wheel. It isn't that same, like, Pogačar today could just accelerate up the Quermont and, like, there's space. I'm actually really curious to see how Pogačar does next weekend. So
I think everyone is. I will say,
good point.
Jordan, the guy does expected thing comment is true. Guy did expected thing. The race favorite did win the race. I think we've been on 25 minutes now, and I feel like maybe we can close on this fact, because we haven't said much about the winner himself. Just how impressive his effort was, given that his teammates worked extremely hard. So I don't want to take that away from them. Like, a reason that they weren't there late is that they had been working so hard, because kind of everyone else smartly conspired against them and forced them to do a lot of work. But that meant that Pogačar was pretty much alone for the last 60K. And it wasn't like he was alone off the front with a 2-minute gap. He was alone of his teammates and trying to fight with Van der Poel and Van Aert and big hitters and multiple teams that had multiple riders. And for him to come out of that with this victory says a lot about how absurdly talented he is, which it's like, how much more can we say about it? But I think today is a great example of his like kind of next level ability. You can, I think there at so many points today, you look at the race situation, like at whatever K to go, you do it at 80K to go, at 60K to go, 40K to go. Things are stacked against Pogačar. Like the tactics are stacked against him. There's groups up the road. Nobody wants to help him chase those groups because he's had a Pogačar. He doesn't have many teammates left, and then he has no teammates left. And at every point, you look at it and you think, a normal person, a normal superstar even, might be screwed here, but not Tadej Pogačar. He waited for well, actually, he didn't necessarily wait because he did put in some attacks. But he waited for the right moment to put like the all-in attack on the board. Like he tried some attacks, but he wasn't. There were very few moments where it seemed like he was attacking and wasting energy with an attack that wasn't working. Like he wasn't putting the hammer down and then going for 10 minutes. It was like, try it, didn't work, let's do it again in 5 minutes.
But at the same time, I think a lot of those try it, didn't work attacks were silly and they were never going to work. And he just did them because he was frustrated, which we also saw at San Remo. Like a lot of stuff where he's just like attacking into a switchback that he's going to have to put on the brakes for. And if there is a weakness here, I think that's it. He is, when he's decided it's time to go, he is very irascible if people aren't going and if he can't go in a way that lets him get rid of those other people.
And particularly this year, I mean, San Remo is the really good example. But today as well, there were those moments that you highlighted on with the images where you could see him seeming frustrated. We don't see that a lot from him, so that's sort of a new thing. So we're sort of like looking for silver linings for his rivals here. Like, what can you pick apart as a reason to be happy about today, even though Tadej just destroyed you again? But I think that is something to take away if you're a rival, which is he did seem kind of frustrated, and we know that his team can be managed. Like they can be. You can put them under pressure. You can isolate Tadej Pogačar. In the end, he could still beat you by a minute. But if you have a big cobbled classic coming up, you might have a blueprint for how to put him under pressure. Maybe. And we do. Paris-Roubaix, 1 week from now. Cosmo and I will be back then. Hopefully, I'll find somewhere in the Roubaix Velodrome area.
You should
to do
put
this
up a
podcast.
little tarp over one of the Roubaix showers and just write, you know, like fermé or something for repairs, however you say that in French. And then just get in there. The
pleasant sound of running water behind me as I.
Well,
as
no,
I
you just get some acoustic panels to put them on the inside, so we get a little sound dampening.
I mean, I do like the ambiance here, and I was really liking the ambiance in the square right before I wanted to record, and they started blasting the music. So those of you who stuck around waiting in the YouTube channel, waiting for the stream to start, we appreciate you. Those of you who are our members on StreamYard, as ever, who are here to chat with us, we appreciate you. Thanks for waiting for the show to start. We'll be back. Cosmo and I will be back for Roubaix, but the Escape Collective Podcast Network will be back much sooner than that. There was obviously a whole other race today. We'll discuss the big win turn this off now if you don't want me to spoil it. Okay, I've given you enough time. A lot of Kopecky, fantastic women's race. Came down to the finale, came down to the finishing straight with 4 riders. Yes, the one who you probably thought was going to win did win, but it was a pretty spectacular finale. We'll have more on that. Spin Cycle, we're going to go live. Well, not live, but we're going to be podcasting here soon. Lots to come.
You couldn't do Spin Cycle live. It's like you'd be working blue, I feel like.
Well, we're doing some Spin Cycle in front of a live audience, so okay. There's that, yeah. But yeah, lots to come this week. Over to escapecollective.com. If you're not a member, go sign up, become a member, because How the Race Was Won is made possible by our members. And we like talking to them. We like chatting with you. So go sign up. We'll be back soon. In the meantime, I've been Dane Cash. And who are you and what was this?
I'm Cosmo Catalano. And that was the How the Race Was Won podcast.